طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to our viewers and watchers. Tonight, like last night, by Allah's permission, we want to take some questions very briefly and following one of our long-standing traditions, sharing and introducing different books, must-reads, important reads, beneficial reads, enjoyable reads from the library of the student of knowledge, of the Muslim, first and foremost, the student of knowledge, let alone the aspiring student of Hadith. So the book that I want to share with you today or tonight is a very important book when it comes to studying the sciences of Hadith and learning the way of the people of Hadith with regards to the technicalities of that great and extensive science. Is a book which is called Al-Kifaya fi Ilm al-Riwaya. And another version of the title of the book says Al-Kifaya fi Ma'rifati Usul al-Riwaya. So the book is colloquially known as Al-Kifaya and is authored by Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, rahimahullah ta'ala, of the 5th century. Some say 463 he died, and others say 465. For sure, the second half of the 5th century. Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, whose status is well known, lil-Qaribi wal-Ba'id, for those close and those who are far away. This is one version of the book, an older print, as you can see. Looks old. Smells old. One volume. And there's a newer version of the book with a tahqiq and a dirasa and hawashi or hawamish with annotation along with the editing of the original manuscript and different beneficial notes. Here's an exam from Qur'an al-Hadith. Let's see what year this was. 1430. What year are we now in? Hijri. 1445. So this is 15 years ago I took this test. And this was in Al-Wad'u wal-Wad'un, a subject that we have on fabricators and Hadith fabrications. Moving forward, so this is a 2-page exam that we had in the 1430, 1431. Tayyib, al-Muhim. We have 2 versions of the book. One is older, one is newer. I would advise you to get both if there aren't other versions as well. In this book, the author, he speaks on, as the title says, Usul al-Riwaya, the foundations of the sciences of Hadith, with regards to the narrators, with regards to the classification and the grading of the Hadiths. Very important with regards to al-Riwaya bil-Ma'na. Is it lawful to paraphrase the Hadith? Or do you have to say it exactly as it states? And that's very important with regards to memorization today. Because people say, should I memorize Bulugh al-Maram, Umdat al-Ahkam? Do I have to memorize both? Should I memorize Kutub al-Sitta? People in India, people in Yemen, people in this country, they memorize Kutub al-Sitta. If you memorize all of those different books of Hadith, then one Hadith is going to have 10, 20 different versions. So you're going to memorize all the versions, one version, or you're going to take a summary of that, so on and so forth. Now, okay. So all the different things, the etiquette and the manners of studying, of learning Hadiths, teaching Hadiths, writing down Hadiths, traveling, etc. In the beginning of the book, the author, Al-Khatib, rahimahullah ta'ala, of course, as we have explained, Sharafu Ashab al-Hadith, another work of his, the nobility and the eminence of the Hadith adherents. And he was a supporter and a proponent for the people of Hadith during his time. In the introduction of this book, he talks about the importance of the Sunnah, learning it, studying it, understanding it, memorizing it, so on and so forth. And he talks about some of the opponents of Ahl al-Hadith, some of the detractors of Ahl al-Hadith, people who looked down upon them over 1,000 years ago. People who said bad things about them, people who criticized them, people who wanted to find fault in them. And it's no different in this very day. It's no different in this very day, right? So he talks about the detractors and the opponents of Ahl al-Hadith, those who speak ill of them and look down upon their way. And it's a narration that he mentions here. He says, كما أخبرنا أبو بكر محمد بن عمر بن جعفر الخرقي قال أخبرنا أحمد بن جعفر بن محمد ابن سلم الخطلي قال حدثنا أبو العباس أحمد ابن عبد ابن علي الأبار قال رأيت بالأهواز رجلا حف شاربه وأظنه قد اشترى كتبا وتعبى للفتيا فذكروا أصحاب الحديث فقال ليسوا بشيء وليس يسوون شيئا فقلت له أنت لا تحسن تصلي قال أنا قلت نعم قلت إيش تحفظ عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا افتتحت الصلاة ورفعت يديك فسكت فقلت وش تحفظ عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا وضعت يديك على ركبتيك فسكت قلت إيش تحفظ عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا سجدت فسكت قلت ما لك لا تكلم ألم أقل لك إنك لا تحسن تصلي أنت إنما قيل لك تصلي الغداة ركعتين والظهر أربعا فالزم ذا خير لك من أن تذكر أصحاب الحديث فلست بشيء ولا تحسن شيئا. He mentions talking about the people who speak bad about the people of Hadith, different imposters, self-righteous people, self-acclaiming. They have knowledge. They're people of fiqh, people of usul, people of Quran. They have the knowledge. They have the understanding. And the people of Hadith, they just memorize. They're just like donkeys and mules. They don't have anything. So he mentions the first narration with his chain of narration, his sanad. And of course, Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi's books are all musnada. The people of the past, whatever they spoke on, tafsir, aqidah, anything with the chain of narration. So he mentions his sanad that goes back to Abu al-Abbas Ahmad ibn Ali al-Abbar. He said, رَأَيْتُ رَجُلًا بِالْأَهْوَازِ. He says there was a man back in the day in a location, a city called Ahwaz. حَفَّ شَارِبَهُ. He is shaving his mustache. And this man, I believe he bought some books from the marketplace, and he was a self-proclaimed scholar. He was a self-proclaimed faqih, a self-proclaimed mufti. He was giving fatawa. He just, bought some books. He was self-taught, right? So, for ذكروا أصحاب الحديث. So the people that he would talk to and give fatwas to, they mentioned, well, what about the people of Hadith? Do they know you? Have you studied with them? Do they agree with this fatwa that you're giving? And this man, he said, لَيْسُوا بِشَيْءٍ. He says they're nothing. They aren't anybody. There are no significance. Who cares what they think or what they believe? وَلَيْسَ يُسَوُونَ شَيْئًا. He says they're nothing and they equal nothing. They amount to nothing. They're trash, basically. All right? That's what he said about them. فَقُلْتُ لَهُ أَنْتَ لَا تُحْسِنُ تُصَلِّي. So I said to him, okay, if that's the case, then let's take off the gloves. He says, you can barely pray correctly. أَنْتَ لَا تُحْسِنُ تُصَلِّي. You don't even know how to pray. So the man said, Anna, like me? What do you mean I can't pray? How dare you say this about me? Don't you see what I'm wearing? Can't you see my hat, my rings? Can't you see the people sitting around me? Can't you see the chair I'm sitting in? I'm a big shot. How dare you talk to me like this? قُلْتُ نَعَمْ. He says, yes, you. I'm talking to you. You don't know how to pray. So I asked him, احتفظوا عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا افتتحت الصلاة ورفعت يديك. He says, tell me one hadith that you memorize when you open up the prayer. Why do you say Allahu Akbar? Why do you raise your hands? Give me the dalil for that. Why do you do this? فسكت. So the man, he kept silent. فقلت واش تحفظ عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا وضعت يديك على ركبتيك. What do you know from the Prophet of Islam when you put your hands on your knees in ruku'? فسكت. The man, he was lost of words. قلت ايش تحفظ عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا سجدت. When you make sujood, give me the proof. Why do you make sujood? فسكت. The man, he kept silent. قلت ما لك لا تكلم. He says, why are you silent? Why the silence now? Why aren't you talking? I can't hear anything. ألم أقل لك إنك لا تحسن تصلي. He says, didn't I tell you before that you don't know how to pray correctly? Didn't I tell you that you barely know the salah? إنما قيل لك تصلي الغداة ركعتين والظهر أربعا فالزم ذا خير لك. He says, instead, you've been told to make fajr to rak'ah. You've been told to make dhuhr for rak'ah, etc. فالزم ذا. Stick to that. That's best for you to just be a blind follower, take what they tell you, instead of disrespecting and speaking ill of the people of Hadith. فَلَسْتَ بِشَيْءٍ وَلَا تُحْسِنُ شَيْئًا. He says, because you are nothing and you don't know anything. All right, so the moral of the story is, many people who put themselves out there, stick out their chest, start talking about people, looking down upon people, claiming that they're this and they're that, so on and so forth. You don't have to argue with them. You don't have to refute them. You don't have to say nasty things. But the best thing to do is this what? Yalla, is the receipt, right? We need to see the receipt from the store. I bought this, I purchased this, you robbed me. All right, can you show me the receipt? And that's why the stores, they say print, email, print, and email. Is this not the case? Show the receipt, all right? So when it comes to claiming that I'm on the correct way, my aqidah is the correct aqidah of Islam, these people are anthropomorphic, Wahhabis, whatever the case may be. Hat. What do you have? What do you know? All right, and the people who do attribute themselves to Ahl Hadith as well within the circle, and they talk about other people, we have to say what? Give us the receipt. What do you know? So oftentimes, the easiest way of shutting somebody up is to give them a basic exam. You don't know why you pray and how you pray. You're a blind follower on the second most important pillar of Islam. So it's best to be a blind follower. It's okay, but if you're a blind follower, you should what? Don't talk about others, let alone the people of Hadith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should knows best. Make sure you get it. Check it out, inshallah. Al-Kifaya fi usuli ma'rifat al-riwaya wa al-Khatib al-Baghdadi rahimahullah ta'ala. I don't know if it's in English. La adri. Maybe there's some things from it in English. I don't know. Tayyib. All right. Bismillah. Let's start off with the questions. Alhamdulillah. Gift given to me, close friend of mine. It's really cool, really nifty. Has a built-in thermometer. So you can see the temperature, huh? It's from Dubai. Tayyip. It's like, simple gift shop, yani, but I appreciate it. Fadda Hussein.
MC from Garissa, Kenya. Can you clarify the rulings regarding nabith and why wine was halal once upon a time?
Tayyip. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. With regards to nabith, then a nabith is basically fermented date juice. Dates and water, or dates, water, and honey that's been sitting for some time, or perhaps even pasteurized, or one may even say distilled. Allahu alam, there are different types with regards to preparing a drink and a drink becoming fermented. So a nabith, without any doubt, if it gets you drunk, then it's haram, even to have a little bit of it. As far as a person just having juice, or a person pasteurizing a juice that doesn't, get him intoxicated, then that's a different story. So it's a long discussion concerning nabith and the wars of the different madhabs and the people of the past with regards to the different countries and Ahl Hadith as well. Many of the people of Hadith, they wouldn't take from a scholar if he drunk nabith. Even if it wasn't khamr, they would have boycotted him, they would have abandoned him. All right? So khamr obviously had 4 main stages. Allah praises khamr. He talks about the sweetness in the Quran, the dates, the palm trees. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the good of khamr and the bad of khamr. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us to avoid being drunk when it's time to pray. And last but not least, fajtanibuhu, avoid khamr absolutely. So those are the 4 stages, the points of evolution and the ruling of khamr in al-Islam. And why it was permissible for some time is obvious, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wanted to gradually ease the companions away from a thing that they were so attached to, weaning them off of the thing that they were so attached to. The Arabs, they spoke about khamr in their poems, in their lines of poetry. It was infamously known, okay? And there are many different stories about great poets, okay? Allahumma musta'an. Yeah, I can tell you all types of things. We don't have a lot of time. A famous poet, what he said about khamr, instead of going to the masjid to pray. Wallahu ta'ala alam. And this is one of the reasons why, tea is a worldwide drink, obviously. It's much more than just a leaf. It's much more than just a drink. It's one of the reasons why people in the Middle East love tea so much, and coffee, because tea and coffee is the replacement for their loved one, khamr. It was so beloved to them, and they needed something that would fill the shoes of khamr that they drink 24/7, and that is tea or coffee. Wallahu alam. Fadl.
MC from
That's in brief. That's what? In brief.
MC from Garissa, Kenya. What's the best explanation of the Alfiya of Suyuti?
Question says, what is the best explanation of Alfiya as-Suyuti? I haven't read all of the explanations, and I don't believe that it's right for a person to say the best explanation unless he's read all of them, or unless it's totally unanimous that this is the mothership of explanations of this book. And even that is always subjective. What's the best explanation of Sahih Bukhari? One may say Fath Bari ibn Hajar, one may say Ibn Rajab, one may say Qastalani, one may say Aini, etc. So that in itself is an argument. They're different ones. If I'm not mistaken, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Adam al-Ethiopi, rahim Allah ta'ala, he has an explanation of the book. He's obviously, he passed away, but he's modern day, not current day, but modern era scholar, very thorough and extensive in his research. I would say check out that explanation. Wallahu ta'ala. I mean, there are others as well.
MJ, Sydney, Australia. Barakallahu fikum. What are Mustafa Jabalawi and what are your top 2 or 3 books related to Hujiyatul Sunnah?
I don't know about the first part of the question. Sounds like the name of someone, so we'll skip that. What are my top 2 books with regards to Hujjiyatul Sunnah? There are several books on Hujjiyatul Sunnah, kathir, jiddan. From the most famous of them is that of Sheikh Mustafa As-Sibai, okay? Tadween al-Sunnah as well, what is a part of the curriculum of Kulliyat al-Hadith, is an excellent summary of many and several works. Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, in his book, he talks about the Hujjiyatul Sunnah, okay? There's several. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
KB, Montreal, Canada. What's the best way to reveal to your parents that you want to go abroad and study Islam, knowing they might have a radical response to it? Also, if they completely disagree, does it become haram for me to go against what they tell me and go study despite them being completely against it?
Tayyib. May Allah make it easy for you. A part of me says try to pick the best time, best place, give it to them gently. Be honest, open discussion with them. Another part of me says don't tell them, talk to your uncle or your aunt and have them explain to your parents. And a part of me says just do it. Just tell them I'm leaving. And the reason why I say that is because not to disrespect your parents, one of the greatest sins in Islam. Being obedient to your parents is one of the most important acts of worship in Islam. That's not an issue of discussion. However, if you're mentioning that and 9 out of 10 times, they're going to say no. They're going to vehemently go against you. Heck no, for several reasons. You got to make money, hijrah, dunya, you're going to become radicalized, you're going to be a terrorist, etc., 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 etc. So if you know that that's going to be their response, why waste your time in beating around the bush? If you know. So, seek Allah's help. Of course, you have to say something to them. They are your parents. As far as if they say no, and they don't bring a strong, clear, sensible reason, go seek knowledge. That would be my advice. And perhaps you can tell them, I'm doing you a favor, whether you realize it or not. Wallahu alam.
MA, Bronx, New York. Who was more beloved to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Aisha or Khadija?
Question says, who is more beloved to the Messenger of Allah, Aisha or Khadija? I've never heard a scholar discuss this before. I've heard the scholars discuss who's more virtuous, Aisha or Khadija. Who is a higher virtuous, a higher status, Aisha, Khadija, or Fatima? They differ, they argue over those points. Khadija was the first. She was there for him from day one. Aisha radiallahu anha was one of his greatest students. Okay? Fatima was his flesh and blood. So every woman has their own, pros and cons, whatever the case may be, with regards to being the best and the top. As far as who is most beloved to him, I've never heard the scholars discuss that issue. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
KF, Bronx, New York. If a woman is pregnant and she wants a divorce from her husband, does she have to wait until the delivery time for the divorce?
Question is concerning a pregnant woman seeking a divorce from her husband. Does she have to wait until the delivery? No, she does not. It's lawful to divorce a pregnant woman. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Mahmoud G, Atlanta, Georgia. May Allah bless you all on the Van Wyck. Alhamdulillah.
Fadda. Salamullah.
UN from Stockton, California. What are some rituals/practices a student, religious and or secular, should do that you recommend to prepare the mind/body for another day of studying?
Question coming from the West Coast. Rituals that a student of knowledge should or can do with regards to preparing for the next day of study?
No.
Tight. Well, um, I'm 39 years old. I'm not that old, and I'm not obviously not that young. Coming up on being 40, inshallah, you learn different things in life, and you value different things in life as you get older, and you learn the greatness of hindsight. Like the Hadith said, the Prophet said, if I knew what I knew, then what I know now, with regards to his Hajj and his Umrah, okay. So hindsight is everything in life. You say, Subhanallah, I get it now, but if I only had got it back then. Now I see what they were saying. Now I see why I should have. Now I see why this was a mistake. Now I see why they were, et cetera, et cetera. Now I see how much Allah blessed me to do that back then, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So with that being said, hindsight, a ritual or something, a healthy habit is taking care of your health, looking after your health. Because if you're sick and your health is bad, it's not but so much you can do. So try your best to look after your health, okay? Because health is going to give you the ability to be strong, and strength is the thing that allows you to study and to keep moving forward. So look after your health with regards to your diet, with regards to your sleeping habits, with regards to exercise, and anything else that infringes upon one's health. All right. I would say is the importance of making the last thing that you do before you go to sleep benefiting, and making the first thing that you do when you wake up benefiting. So the last thing that you should do, you make your adhkar, you make tawbah before you sleep. All right, you recite what you're supposed to recite before you sleep. You seek Allah's protection, and you read. Fall asleep reading. And you should wake up, make your adhkar, and get a fa'idah before you use the restroom, or before you get something out the refrigerator, or whatever you do. Let the last thing be a fa'idah, and the first thing you do when you wake up, a fa'idah. And that's a good habit, huh? And never ever underestimate the importance of stolen benefits. Stolen fa'idah. You getting a fa'idah when you weren't supposed to. Sitting at the doctor's office, sitting in traffic, walking here, doing this, and you just came across a random fa'idah when it wasn't study time. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
SD Gresic, Indonesia.
And that's just, we can coin that term, huh? Al-fa'idah al-masruqa. Huh? Al-maghsuba. The stolen what? The stolen fa'idah. Fadl. So if you see somebody pop up on the internet start saying that, all right, fadl.
SD Gresic, Indonesia. Can I have 2 or 3 favorite dua from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Recite in my every sujood or before salam.
2 or 3 favorite supplications
From the Prophet.
from the Prophet. Well, I don't know what you mean by favorite. Okay, there are many ahadith in which the companion said that the Messenger of Allah kana yaqulu, he would say, he wouldn't sleep before this. He would say. So I think it's relatively difficult to say favorite for sure. Things that the Prophet ﷺ used to say, all right? Of course, I would say one of the things that are needed on a daily basis, Allahumma la sahla illa ma ja'altahu sahla. Wa anta taj'alul huzna idha shi'ta sahla. There's nothing easy unless you make it, oh Allah. And please make things easy, because you have the power to take grief and sadness to ease and facilitation. Very important dua I think that we should make, that the Prophet ﷺ told us. Another very important dua, Allahumma ja'al rizqa ali Muhammadin quta. Oh Allah, please make the sustenance of Muhammad's family sufficiency, just enough. Not too much in which it preoccupies you, and not too little in which you're hungry and cold and wet and hot and you can't focus and you can't study. All right? So those definitely are 2. And of course, most importantly, Allahumma ya musarrif al-qulub, sarrif qalbi ila ta'atik. Allahumma ya muthabbit al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala ta'atik. Asking Allah to make you firm. He who contains or possesses and controls the hearts of the human beings. And that's profound if you think about it. The human being isn't in control of his own heart. If you think about that. Okay, and Allah tells us in the Quran, and Allah yahulu bayna al-mar'i. And Allah can come between a man and his own heart. That's very interesting. Wallahu alam.
SY Miami, Florida. Must I still try to maintain a relationship with my family even though they make Islam difficult for me and hate hijab and won't be seen with me in public because I wear it?
If your family makes things very difficult for you, they hate hijab, so on and so forth, still keep relations with them, but through different means. If you have to send them a letter in the mail, a gift, a text message, whatever you can. Okay, you're too embarrassed to be with me in public, no problem. We meet in private, no problem. That's better for me. I don't want to be around you. You dress like that. Okay, so sometimes you gotta have a better mindset. That's your family. You love your family naturally. You want good for your family. You want Islam for your family. You want Sunnah for your family if they're Muslims. But for argument's sake, they're embarrassing you now. If they feel like you're embarrassing them in public, wearing this, looking like a terrorist, well, you half naked. You're embarrassing me. I'm ashamed to stand next to you. I have a beard and your face is shaven. You have a green face. That's embarrassing. That's offensive. Wallahu alam. Fight fire with what? With fire.
LY from Charlotte, North Carolina. Is it okay to be sad when provision is delayed, or is it a sign of weak iman?
Sadness is a natural emotion of the human being. And the general rule is that you aren't blanked or condemned for natural emotions. Now, you yourself causing those natural emotions is one thing. You yourself not fighting them, not handling them, not making dua, allowing those natural emotions to take control of you, that's a different level. But the initial emotion, anger, lust, jealousy, different things that you may have, that's natural. But it's what you do with it afterwards that matters. And of course, a person is going to be naturally saddened or distressed to some extent when things are difficult. But it's what you do with that and how you behave and how you conduct yourself afterwards. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
KV, Montreal, Canada. How long should I steep my green tea in order to have a sweet drink and not a bitter one?
Allahu Akbar. How long should I steep my green tea? This will be our last question tonight. Unfortunately, we run out of time. I know there are probably more questions. Well, obviously, it depends on what type of green tea you have. And not to get too dramatic or too philosophical, but many people just call all type, green tea. Go get that box of Melosa Sajid. Shuf, Bigelow. And there's nothing against Bigelow. I drink Bigelow, when I have to. It's not against Bigelow, but I'm just, all right, let's just method in. No coincidences, right? Nor anything bland. So it says Bigelow Family Tea Blender since 1945. Green tea with elderberry plus vitamin C. All right? So it's called green tea. What is green tea? For real, if you honestly, want to honestly, look at tea, all tea technically is what?
Green.
It's green. Yani. Okay, so as we've explained in different videos, what makes green tea different from black tea or oolong or pu'er or etc., different types of tea is the oxidation. So you have a piece of metal. That metal could be stainless steel, it could be iron, it could be rusted, it could be polished, right? How the water, the sun, the air, what color the steel or the metal turns. So that's the tea leaf. So the tea leaf is originally green. And then there's something done with the tea leaf after it's plucked or clipped or clipped. You understand? Pan fired, baked, okay? Withered, dried out, all right? And then is allowed to sit, so on and so forth. And it goes from green to, depending on how much cells are ruptured, how much drying, how much withering. So that makes the difference between oolong, which is like 75% oxidized. That's why oolong is still technically green, but it's not green, as something which is 25% oxidized. So first and foremost is if you want a sweet cup of tea, not too bitter, you have to define what do you mean by what? Green tea. Something out of a box, nothing against the box. Something there is there different types of tea and different types of green tea. All right, that's the moral of the story. Bancha, Sincha, and the list goes on. All right. But for argument's sake, if you're using something out of the box, or if you have some loose leaf, even if it's basic low-grade loose leaf, then it's the amount of tea and how long you allow it to steep. The amount of tea, how long you allow it to steep, and of course the temperature of the water. If the water is too scalding hot, even if it's a little bit of tea, and you don't steep it that long, you're going to scald and burn the leaves. Tea bag, you don't have to worry about that, but the leaves, you want to burn it. So it's going to give you a harsh, bitter, rough type of taste. So you have to get the right temperature for your tea and the right amount. Play it safe. So don't allow your tea to steep for no longer than a minute, whatever tea it is. Bag, expensive, low quality, basic quality, don't allow it to steep for more than a minute. Take it out. Here you have your water, which people call tea. Tea is the actual leaf, your liquor. You try it out, with or without sweetener. So I think it's the length of how you allow it to brew. And if you dump too much tea, it's too strong, too bold. The temperature of the water and what you add or what you don't add. And of course, I said we don't want to get too philosophical because it is a long discussion. Tea is like people. You can't treat everyone the same. You have an aggressive nature, you have a soft nature, you're hyper, you're calm, you're a man, you're a woman, you're a child, you're older. That's tea. Tea has different personalities, even though it's all generally tea. Like humans are humans. But everybody, you can't talk to somebody 20 years old like talk to somebody 7 years old. You can't, the energy of a 2-year-old is not like the energy of a 7-year-old. And that is what? That's tea. So if you want your child, your 2-year-old child, you take them out to dinner and you want them to sit still and to be peaceful without breaking the cups and the glasses. Whose mistake is that? That's the parents. 7-year-old may be able to do that, but not for an hour. Only 20 minutes. Well, heck of that. So if you go against those rules, you're going to get the bitter tea. That's the moral of the story. So try it out. Start with 30 seconds, 1 minute, and you gradually work your way up. And do less than a teaspoon for 8 ounces of liquid. 8 ounces of water, start off with just a 30-second steep. And then you steep it again for a minute, and then you'll be able to determine this is too bitter, and then you'll find your comfort zone, let alone when you add your sweetener to it, whatever that sweetener may be. That's a long discussion. Certain teas which shouldn't be sweetened, teas which are okay to be sweetened, teas that can be drank with milk and sugar, teas that go well with honey, teas that don't go well with honey. That teas that have a natural sweetness with them. Inshallah ta'ala, look out for more mufti videos. Bidnai ta'ala. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Jazakum Allah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.